The Straits Times Asian of the Year award is now in its 9th year. Past winners include well-known names such as Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, Singapore's founding Prime Minister, and Indonesian President Joko Widodo. Other winners include those less known to the public, such as 2018's Winning Collective of Disaster Relief First Responders. We're joined by Ms. Bhagya Sri Garika, foreign editor of the Straits Times. Hi Bhagya, could you share with us the criteria the judging panel looked at when choosing the Asian of the Year?
Sure, so it's just one word, impact. And so we look at an individual or a group of people or an organization that's made a substantial contribution during the year. So that basically is our criteria.
I see. Okay, so this year has been a whirlwind of events, dominated of course with the Covid-19 pandemic. So how different is the award this year?
Well, this year, every single day has been dominated by COVID. Now, we gravitated towards that theme quite naturally. And then we started to look at all the misery, all the suffering that's gone on through most of this year. And then towards the end, we've actually had some hope come up. And hope that's actually coming up because of vaccines and treatments that are beginning to show promise. So for the Straits Times Asians of the Year, we have Asians as in more than one person. The Straits Times Asians of the Year are actually faces of hope. We have Asia's virus busters.
So with that, Bhagya, could you reveal with us this year's winners?
So we have Dr. Tang Yongsan at the Shanghai Public Health Clinical Center, Major General Chen. She is at the Academy of Military Sciences in China. We have from Japan, Dr. Ryuchi Morishita, Professor Wee Seng from Singapore's Duquesne NUS Medical School, from South Korea, Seo Jung-jin, the chairman of Celtrion, and finally, Mr. Adar Poonawala. He's the CEO of the Serum Institute of India. So those are the 6 Asia's virus busters.
Let's start with the efforts of Dr. Tang Yongsan. His work has made a truly global impact. Could you share with us a little bit more about his work?
So Dr. Zhang is, he has a pretty stupendous effect this year. So very early on, he decoded, along with his team at the Shanghai Public Health Clinical Center, he basically worked through 2 nights all through and decoded the whole sequence of the genome of this virus. It actually started a whole chain of things going. So this virus is basically demystified through his work. What it does is it allows us to have a diagnosis quickly. And most importantly, and this is why especially we looked at him, is because his discovery, which he shares with the world very early, his discovery actually paves the way for the vaccines. Now, vaccines this year, quite a few of the successful candidates this year are actually based on the messenger RNA technology. So what that needs is for the sequence, the genome of the virus to be available. And so that was the substance of his work.
So staying in China, one of the other winners, Major General Chen of the People's Liberation Army of China, has an impressive story. She was part of the team that developed the plasma therapy that has since been accepted as an officially recognized treatment method. What else about her efforts caught the judges' eyes?
Right, so Major General Chen, she actually was dispatched to Wuhan quite early. This was just after the Chinese New Year. And what happened was that Wuhan was under a lockdown, and she played the part that you mentioned about fighting back against the virus quite successfully. She was actually an official hero recognized by the Chinese government. But what she did, and this is where she got her eye, is because she led a team of scientists to develop China's earliest vaccine. So this is the work that she does at CanSino. And for this vaccine that she and her team produced, it actually got the patent for China's first vaccine. And it's currently being used to inoculate people in China.
So back to local ground, Professor Wee Seng of the Duke NUS Medical School is a co-developer of a COVID-19 vaccine candidate that is among only 48 in the world that are being tested on humans. The team has spoken with Professor Wee. How does he feel about having to develop a vaccine at such an accelerated timeline?
Right. So, typically vaccines take years to develop. 4 or 5 years. And this is against a virus. Not too many successful virus vaccines exist in the first place. I mean, there's a few, but for most viruses, we do not have treatments, and we do not have vaccines. So what's taken place is actually quite eye-opening and is very much a reason for hope. And what Professor Wee's team's done is that he's looking at one particular technology, and through which he's hoping to produce results. Trials have already been going on in Singapore on humans, on volunteers, and this is since October. We have the next phase coming up later this month. So Professor Wee's work actually adds, his is one of 50 or so vaccines that are currently undergoing human trials. So, it's a significant cause for hope.
Okay, so from Japan, we have Dr. Ryuchi Morishita. Can you tell us more about his work?
All right. So similarly, we have Dr. Morishita in Osaka, and his team has another twist on technology. I think it's a DNA-based vaccine. So it uses some parts of the virus. And I think what distinguishes his work is that, according to the findings they've had, is they're able to produce this vaccine faster and cheaper. So apparently you can produce it at a much shorter time than if you went through, developing vaccine cultures, for instance. So it becomes cheaper too, though I believe it's going to need more than one dose.
So besides honoring vaccines developers, the award also acknowledges the individuals who are helping to manufacture these vaccines at such a tight timeline. So Mr. Adar Poonwala, the CEO of Serum Institute of India, was chosen for this. Could you share with us a bit more about his story?
Right. So he incidentally is the youngest candidate on our list. He's 39, the CEO of Serum Institute, which is based in the western part of India. Now, this is a family-owned firm which was started in the 60s. The interesting thing is that they basically are the largest manufacturer of vaccines. I think 60% of world's children are vaccinated from, vaccines produced at this institute. So what's special about them is the scale at which they can do it. And what's special, especially this year, is that Mr. Poonawala took, I guess you could call it a gamble or a risk, to go ahead with producing this vaccine even before it was fully proven. So his institute is producing what is called the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. And lately it's had good news. We've heard of trials doing very well. But earlier than that, when he started making it, all that wasn't known. So he took a chance. I think he put in some $250 million of his own money. And he said, I can't lose time. Let me make this. And well, if you have to scrap it because the vaccine in the end is no good, well, that's a chance he's taken. So I think that distinguishes him. The other part would be that he actually has committed to providing vaccines at a low cost for the poorer nations, the low and the middle income nations in Africa as well as Asia.
I see. So also on the manufacturing side, we have the Celtrion chairman, Seo Jung-jin, who had an interesting start. So something about a loan shark journey. Could you share with us?
Oh, yes, that's right. So like you say, he's 63 years old. And like you say, he's the chairman of Celtrion. When it was started, this is something that we've read, that he actually, one account says that he pledged his organs to get money for his startup. Now, this bit has been reported but not corroborated. The other bit is that he actually borrowed from loan sharks. So, when it's a risky venture, I suppose the banks aren't very, easy with the money. So he went to a loan shark, and that's where he started his business. This bit he has not denied. So there's some truth in that, I suppose. Now, of course, he is, he leads one of South Korea's largest pharmaceutical companies. And what's interesting about him is he's said to be pursuing vaccines, but he's also said to be producing antibodies. Now, antibodies these are the kind that are meant to complement the work of vaccines. So again, they have the effect of being able to prevent the disease from developing into a more serious form, or it is the fact that somehow it prevents a person to get it. So it's different from vaccines, but it very well complements vaccines. And he has, in some interviews, said he'd like to be, behind the effort to make South Korea corona-free by next spring. So in a couple of months, he hopes to be rolling out things. We know that he's already said he will supply, I think, about 2 million doses of this vaccine across the world every year. Sorry, not the vaccine, I mean to say the antibody treatment that he's pursuing.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing us the stories, Bhagya. And to read more about the fascinating stories behind this year's winners, go to straitstimes.com.